In this day and age, buying games is hard. That's not a statement you'd expect to hear, but between the increasing cost of larger titles and the overwhelming amount of games hitting digital stores and flooding social media, choosing which games to buy and play has become, well, hard. Games are huge investments, and we want to spend our money on something we think we'll enjoy for hours and hours. So instead of reviewing just one game and tossing my worthless opinion into the endless waste of YouTube, I'm going to review 2 games and compare them so that maybe somebody will find this helpful in their search to find their next game. Or 2 of my opinions will get tossed in the void. I wanted to pick 2 games that were similar to each other in genre, concept, and release date. I ended up choosing 2 roguelikes that have come out in the past few years, fast-paced, amazing art styles, and are both about being trapped in the depths and making your way to the surface. For the first game, I chose Hades, and for the second game, I chose Exit the Gungeon. And before you go saying anything, yes, I picked Exit over Enter. I chose this because it seemed to be closer to Hades in pacing and structure. It came out much more recently and much closer to the release date of Hades, and if you've already played the original, then just think of this video as finding out what you should play next. I promise I'm going to talk about Enter the Gungeon, but I'm going to save that for later in the video. Before we jump into the games themselves, I just wanted to explain what exactly a roguelike is for any of you at home who don't know what I'm talking about. Roguelikes are games usually centered around the idea of if you die, you have to go all the way back to the beginning and start from scratch. Most of the time, you'll find yourself going through procedurally generated levels, carefully acquiring upgrades, resources, weapons, abilities, you name it. Now, games are a diverse medium, so not all of these will apply to every game. More often than not, these are the foundations for what make a true roguelike. Like I mentioned in my Outer Wilds video, your progression is more marked by your game knowledge rather than your gear, your rank, or how maxed out your skill trees are. It's not really about unlocking the final cosmetic on your battle paths, it's more like ramming your head against a brick wall until you develop an iron skull. Dying and difficulty are big parts of these games, like notoriously so. These games tend to have a streak of being rather rage-inducing, and I get it. Nothing is more frustrating than being so close to glory and fortune only to have a goddamn dumbass spike send your ass back to the fucking mine! So with all that in mind, I'd like to move on to the main point of this video, and we're going to start off by talking about Hades. You play as Zagreus, who is the son of the titular Hades, god of the underworld. Having both daddy and mommy issues, you take up arms, smack some heads, and become a kingpin by distributing that sweet, sweet illegal nectar to anybody.
And all they have to do is pledge their loyalty.
The game is set up in a series of rooms meant to portray the labyrinth of the shifting underworld. After you defeat all the enemies in each room, you choose from a series of doors that offer different rewards for clearing their room. Like some kind of twisted Price is Right segment where on top of guessing the door, you also have to fight some demons standing behind it. Zagreus would kick ass on that show though, because not only does he have a wide variety of weapons, but he collects power-ups from the gods of Olympus to make him more powerful than Death himself. So Hades sounds pretty good, right? Well, buckle the fuck up, because now we're gonna be talking about... After finally conquering the dungeon, the Gungeoneers must make their way back to the surface. To reach the surface, you take a series of elevators with unique layouts and a mini shopping/room stage in between, and then a boss before progressing to the next floor. Get new guns, maybe some power-ups, and meet some friendly faces along the way. And then watch it all disappear because you get caught up in this. I mean, look at this! What the fuck is this shit? Now that we're all familiar with what these games are, let's get into the nitty-gritty of comparing the two and seeing which one is more worth your money. To make this all a little easier on myself, I've split this up into 6 different categories. Gameplay, content, world, atmosphere, yes, these are 2 different categories, replayability, and finally, the endings. I'll give a spoiler warning before we hit that point, and I'll have a time code that you can skip to as well. Now that the stage has been set, it's time to... I'm going to award points for each category, and whatever game ends up with the most points wins.
Now the first category is...
The most important aspect of any game, and one that both of these games excel at, is gameplay. To start things out, I'm just going to jump right in and start talking about Exit the Gungeon. To make a long story short, it's really good. It's bullet hell done right. packed in, overwhelmed with enemies, perfectly timing your dodging, jumping, and shooting. Your player really has a nice weight to them, and the controls are tight as hell. Bullet patterns are complex, the weapon variety is unfucking believable, and all it has to do is just keep adding more, and lo and behold, it does. I feel a lot of successful runs are RNG heavy, but I also feel you still have enough choice to affect your playstyle and how you tackle each scenario. All that said, it's fast, fun, and hard as hell. It's quintessential and straight to the point with all the hard-hitting action intact.
A solid showing from Enter the Gungeon, but here look! Hades is coming in with the counterattack! Ooh, it's fucking good as hell!
Just like Gungeon, this game is fast and fun as hell. But instead of collecting lots of useless power-ups and weapons that kinda just get put in your back pocket, Hades builds onto your arsenal so that by the end of the game you become a beautiful tsunami of death. You choose one weapon before you start the run, and then slowly develop as you choose powers and abilities to combo off each other. Racking up deadly combos means that one weapon can yield many different playstyles. You can zip around, smashing anything before it even gets a chance. You could keep enemies at a distance and try to zone them out. You could even be more defensive and use the terrain to your advantage. No matter which way you play, the combat feels very finely tuned and action-packed. Now, the competition for this category is tough, and it's really close. Since this category is the main reason I chose both of these games, I'm gonna call it a tie. So now that we know that both of these games have real merit to them, let's see which one is a better bang for your buck. This is a category with more measurable facts rather than thought-out opinions, so let's just run the numbers and see where we go from there. Starting off with weapons, Hades has a respectable 6. Gungeon has 113. Hades has 4 levels, while Gungeon has 6, with 16 unique variations. Not looking too good for Hades. Moving on to enemies, not including bosses. Hades weighs in at 36 enemies, while Gungeon only weighs in at 35. Moving on to big bad bosses. Now I'm gonna give Hades a little credit and say they have 8, but this is a bit of a stretch. There's really only about 5, with one of them being a secret boss. I'm treating Theseus and Astrius as 2 separate bosses, as well as the individual Fury Sisters. However, I am not counting the Bone Hydra's different variants. However, if you do, then the number is 12. But none of that matters because Gungeon smacks it in the face with 14 bosses, and the added bonus of fighting a different order of bosses each time around. Next up, we have NPCs. And because Hades is a more narrative-driven roguelike, it features 31 different NPCs that you can converse with or exchange goods with. Gungeon only has 23, and that's including these 2 groups of 2 people as individuals, despite them only being for a singular function. Lastly, there are the items/power-ups. Basically, this last category is anything you can acquire that isn't currency or a weapon. No, Hades pom-poms don't count because they only upgrade powers you've already acquired. In Exit the Gungeon, if we combine the items, relics, and these weird little floating power-up things, you get a pretty astounding 120. However, in Hades, if you only count the boons, Zagreus has 173 to choose from. If you include the keepsakes, the items from the Well of Charon, and all the weapon upgrades, there are an astronomical 326. So if you look at the grand total here, it looks like Hades wins, right? Well, not so fast. In the Gungeon, you have the chance of running into any of the 113 weapons or 120 power-ups in a single run. In Hades, sure, you could run into any boon, but there needs to be an asterisk because certain boons will replace other boons. And the weapon upgrades are limited to which weapon you choose before you start. If it were numbers alone, sure, it would go to Hades, but let's take a look at the numbers that matter more. They have a similar number of enemy types, but Gungeon has a larger variety of levels and bosses. Not to mention that Gungeon has more playable characters. It has enough items to fare against the insane amount of boons anyway. The point easily goes to Exit the Gungeon. Yes, the world. And since I chose to put atmosphere and world as 2 different categories, I'll explain my thinking. When I say the world, I'm more talking about the community or society of the game. I'm talking about the quality of characters and writing. How interesting is the lore? What is the extent of how much you can interact with or change this world? When I say atmosphere, I'm more so talking about the things that set the tone of the game. The art style, the music, the more intangible little details of the game that really give it its feel. With that out of the way, Exit the Gungeon doesn't really have a cohesive world. All of the characters, while having charm to them, quickly wear their welcome and become flat, boring, and one-dimensional after just a few interactions. They feel like they were put there simply because it's a video game and you have to interact with them. But this fucking computer, which is actually listed as a fucking NPC for some reason, has about the same amount of character as anybody in this game. Nobody has a motive besides escape, but it doesn't seem like any of these fuckers are keen on doing that either. Everybody is just a glorified merchant with a funny joke they introduce themselves with. I understand that this isn't the point of the game, and it's not the game's strong suit. These characters are more so here to just smooth over the mechanics. And like I said earlier, gameplay is most important. You don't have to have a good story to have a good game, but... Look, I've gone long enough without talking about how much I love the world of Hades. I'd argue it's one of the most important aspects of the game. You can tell they put as much effort into it as the gameplay. Let's start with characters. You may point out, wait, these aren't original characters, and yes, you're correct. Names are not what makes characters. Yes, sure, you may have heard of Achilles or Cerberus or Hades, but this isn't like Boba Fett where I'm just hyping up characters despite their personalities being equivalent to a fucking corkboard. After engaging in many dialogues, these characters start to feel like real people. Sure, some of them are more quirk-based than others, but they can crack and show real emotion. Everybody feels like they have a motive, doubts, habits, flaws, all the things that make us human. Sometimes you'll go around the hub world and overhear the characters talking to each other. They have friends and rivals and romantic interests. It's so wonderful and fully realized. Zagreus himself is amazing, even if he suffers from some generic protagonist traits, like the need to crack so many one-liners.
Now you can turn back like a good little man, or I can send you home the painful way. What'll it be?
I'll have to go with the painful way.
But he still feels like a deep, complex character who's really hard not to like. Probably the strongest part of the story is the relationship, or lack thereof, with his father, Hades. He's a powerful, imposing figure whose constant disapproval of his son shoots straight into your heart with every boy he delivers from his deep, rich, commanding voice. I guess I can segue into the voice acting, which doesn't seem to be a common thing in roguelikes, so the fact that there's a considerable amount of actors in this game, and none of them stick out like a sore thumb, is pretty incredible. I could make an entire video about how much I love the characters in this game, but we have other categories to talk about. So I'm just going to give the point to Hades. I mean, you knew it was coming, and just look at how much more script I had written for Hades. It easily won by a long shot. This is going to be a bit tricky because this is kind of an intangible sort of topic. I kind of explained it earlier, but to elaborate, the atmosphere of a game is a combination of its artistic choices, with a lot of the legwork being done by the design and the music. Things like the way characters talk, the way your characters control, and the animations help play a huge role in it too. It's all these little things that really give a game its personality. This was a topic I completely forgot to talk about in my last two reviews, which I'm kind of disappointed in myself for because my love for those two games has a lot to do with their atmosphere. I'm gonna start off with Hades again because I'm still hot off gushing about it. I probably didn't need to tell you this, but this game looks gorgeous. Supergiant Games is known for these beautiful landscapes, and Hades is no exception. In any other game, you might just blow right past all the detail and care that went into design, but in Hades, you really get to soak it all up. Specifically, I love these little moments right before you enter a new level. It's empty and quiet. Walking over to a small ledge, the camera slowly pans out to the land that awaits you. It's small details like this that really bring energy and life to this world. It also helps make each level feel distinct from the others. And speaking of distinct, the weapons all feel really good to use. There's enough variety to cover different playstyles, and it's clear a lot of effort went in to give these weapons a really good feel to them. Their sounds are super clangy and punchy, and it's just so satisfying to wail on enemies. Unfortunately, the music is pretty generic, and while it services the game well, none of the songs really stuck in my head, which is unusual because usually at least one or two songs from a game's soundtrack will stick with me, but with Hades I just didn't find that. You want to talk about a game with some good music though? Do I gotta blast the theme again? I think I do. On top of a pretty kickin' soundtrack, this game is a joy to look at. It's detailed and beautiful, the pixel graphics are perfect, even if it's a little too hectic to take it all in. While I've been talking about how many weapons there are, it's surprising how varied they all are. The amount of sounds and art they had to do for each gun is astounding. I can't help but feel like all this effort is being covered up. And probably for good reason too. While you're just kind of stampeding through the game, you start to feel like many of the levels feel the same. The shop on every floor is literally the same, and your eyes are mainly focused on enemies and bullets, so on every level your brain just says, I'm playing in the magical world of gray bricks. It also doesn't help that the game uses the same enemies for every level, unlike Hades, which uses a different set of enemies specifically designed to match the theme of their respective level. It just kind of blends the game together and makes it seem like it's trying to give you everything it has to offer, rather than letting you take it at your own pace. If atmosphere was a sauce, Exit the Gungeon would be covered in it, but Hades would be marinated in it. I think both of these games put on a strong performance in this category, but Hades just made a stronger impression on me. The point goes to Hades. Since a big part of the roguelike games are dying and starting over again, they have to be pretty compelling to get you to repeat the same stages over and over again. The most important thing is to have tight-ass gameplay, but we've already established that both games are guilty of that, so we gotta look at the progression, narrative, or other reasons why you should keep playing. Putting the ball in its court, Exit the Gungeon takes 2 steps and then kinda sputters out. I'm not trying to say there's no point to keep playing, but it's mostly player-driven. Again, this game is pretty simple, but there's not really anything incentivizing to keep you going. If it weren't for the fact that it was so damn fun, I probably would have dropped it for something else. I'll give it credit though, in the beginning it does kinda give you a goal to free all the characters locked away, but once that's been done, you're just on your own. You do get to unlock more weapons and items, which is cool cause that's the best part of the game. There are also cosmetics, but none of them really make me want to go for them. The only piece of content that's actually worth unlocking is the characters. Since the layout of a run is dependent on the character, unlocking new characters means you get to unlock new areas. Or at least that's what they want you to think. In reality, these new levels are actually just reused from other character routes with a few cosmetic changes. To be fair, even some of the main characters use each other's routes. So the question is, does it get a pass? And my answer is, yeah. It's too much fun to really fault it for something small like this. And just because there's no meaningless goal waved in front of me, a little self-motivation still makes it worth going through again and again. So why did I spend all this time talking about the things I didn't like in this category? Well, because, spoiler, Hades kind of blew it out of the fucking water. Given that this is Supergiant's first roguelike, they wanted to make it a little more accessible to newer players, but they still wanted to make sure it had that difficulty that roguelikes are so famous for. What they came up with is kinda genius. Let me explain. So in the game, there's this resource called Darkness. After collecting enough, you can go to the night mirror located in your quarters and spend Darkness to permanently upgrade Zagreus. Now I know this is kind of a roguelike sin right off the bat, but hear me out. These upgrades help keep you motivated to keep pushing further and further into the depths of the underworld. Once you complete a run, the Pact of Punishment becomes available. If you want to keep earning rewards while playing, you have to intentionally make the game harder. This isn't just some difficulty slider. You actually get to choose specific effects that make the game more difficult, including disabling upgrades, adding perks to enemies, making items more expensive, and so on and so forth. This system, I think, really encourages new players to be able to cope with some of the steeper learning curves, while still giving them the appreciation for the genre. You can also customize your hub world, giving it that kind of personal touch that makes it more familiar. Like, the more you play and understand the game, the more you start to affect it. My only real complaint is that despite paying for furniture, Zagreus still refuses to sit on anything. Why have button prompts to relax or sleep if the only thing that happens is Zagreus going,
Not as comfy as it looks.
Both of these games had chairs that disappointed me, so fuck this man and his stools for getting my hopes up. Now I can swim in my own crushed dreams. Thank you so much. Chairs aside, the point easily goes to Hades. I know I said there would be a spoiler portion of the video, but since all the tension has been deflated by the score, I don't think there's a reason for that anymore. If you really cared about it, I only had one thing to say anyway. Hades actually has an ending, while Exit the Gungeon doesn't. So what now? I mean, everything has been talked about. Hades is clearly the better game, so I guess it wins. But let's stop for a minute. This contest wasn't really fair. I mean, Hades was a fully developed game and an original IP. Exit the Gungeon is just a smaller spin-off of Enter the Gungeon, so wouldn't it make more sense to compare those two games? And I would agree, but it's just, well, we've spent enough time together now, so I'm gonna confess something to you. I haven't played Enter the Gungeon.
I mean, I've only barely played it.
I know, I've heard all about it, and I know I should play it, and hell, I even played Exit the Gungeon, so why not? That's what I thought. So halfway through writing this script, I started playing it. And you know what I think? Well, for starters, I'm glad there's still this kick-ass theme. I haven't played much, so this isn't going to be as informative an opinion. And I'll also be relying on my friend who is an Enter the Gungeon expert to fill in some of the details for me. But I don't even need him to tell you this game is insane. It fixes so many of my problems with Exit the Gungeon. For starters, I thought that Exit had a lot of content, only to find that every single weapon and enemy is in Enter, plus a whole lot more. There's a lot more mechanics, and the environment is just so much more alive, with books flying off shelves, debris falling everywhere, and buttons and switches you can interact with. It helps make the world feel more realized and lived in, rather than just a backdrop. With all that being said though, there is only one thing that really hurt this game for me though, and that was the pacing. In Hades and Exit the Gungeon, you're like a speeding train going 200 miles an hour, collecting power-ups like somebody going for True Jedi, while Enter the Gungeon is more methodical and paced out. You have to meander about a dungeon floor more like a temple in Zelda, exploring rooms, finding somewhat useful items every blue moon, and lots of backtracking. I'm not exactly opposed to this type of game, and time travel is reduced by having these teleporters, but I wasn't exactly thrilled to go from this to this. So where does this leave us, and what conclusions can we draw from this? I think out of everything here today, I just gotta give it up for Hades. Sorry, Exit the Gungeon, I had to call in your older brother, and even he couldn't get the job done. Hades, you are a beautiful game that managed to get more from my $20 than the last 3 games I bought for $60. You are fully realized, super polished, and just downright fun as hell, on top of an interesting story with memorable characters. If you have not played this game, seriously, go play it. It's worth every penny. And that's that. It was a good showing. 3 strong games that deserve to be played, and if you combined all their prices, it's still cheaper than Cyberpunk. So now that I can add financial consultant to my resume, and you can add 3 great games to your Steam wishlist, cart, and library, I think my work here is done. Goodbye.
I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. This video was a lot to me too. I started maybe like 6 months ago, and then I moved in the middle of it, and that put a hold on things, and then my computer broke down, and that put another hold on things, but I'm finally out, finally got it out. So just show this thing some love. I worked really hard on it. Anything you can do helps, like liking, subscribing, any of that. It's probably all over the screen right now. And I've got other videos too, so make sure to check those out. Those are arguably good. And just, yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.